All right. Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, even if you're viewing this presentation later on. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I'm excited to see so many prospective Knight Hennessy Scholar applicants interested in learning more about our program here today. So on behalf of the Knight Hennessy Scholars team, welcome and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Christian Tanja, and I'm the Senior Assistant Director of Admission on the Knight Hennessy Scholars team. I hit my 3-year anniversary being a part of the team, so I'm excited to share 3 years worth of insights that you will be able to use on your thinking about the possibilities of your future trajectories. And I hope that I'll be able to shed some light on our process today that will be helpful and get you excited about what's potential to come, and that Stanford and Knight Hennessy are on that list of possibilities for you. So this came about because we hosted members of the African Leadership University and ALX Africa on campus at our 4th annual Global Leadership Program at Stanford in April 2025. And we most recently welcomed our 2025 cohort that represents 81 different countries in, the program overall, 81 different countries, but in this next coming cohort, we have scholars who are joining us from Sudan, Kenya, Ghana, and Cameroon. And so with that, I'll go ahead and jump into our slide deck where I'll pitch the program for a few slides, and we'll have some some time to be able to answer whatever questions that you have at the remainder. And just as a quick note, things are evolving very quickly, and so you have as much information as I do about the future of higher education in the United States. But we'll go ahead and jump into some conversations, the experience specifically about some of our students and scholars. Stanford is one that very much welcomes our international student population because we have about 1/3 of our graduate students come from overseas institutions. And so in the program, they represent a fourth to a fifth of our community. So you'll hear later on that it is part of our mission. And so we still very much stand behind all of that. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into our official slide deck here. Welcome again to our online information session. In case any of the information that you want a re-listen, we will have a posting of this recording and the talking points on our website starting on June 1st when our application opens for the next coming cycle for the 2026 cohort. So we're always operating in about a year in advance. So I hope that you seek to be an inspiring leader. That is kind of the ethos of what we're trying to do. You're driven to address our world's most important and complex challenges. You appreciate that being an expert in your chosen field is an important first step towards your goals, but you know that it's only the beginning. And most importantly, you recognize that leadership in our modern world requires cross-cultural perspectives and expertise across different disciplines. So over the 20 minutes or so, I'll share a context of why we exist, what's the history and background of the program, and then a little bit about what we do in terms of the benefits that you'd get by being a Knight Hennessy Scholar. Then I'll provide an overview for how to apply. So if you're thinking about that current cycle, whether it be next year, this year, or it may be in 6 or 7 years, giving you kind of insights on what to keep in mind as you prepare an application to Stanford and to Knight Hennessy, detailing that admission process for the KHS side. And finally, I'll close with a few talking points from our alumni about why join us. And then we'll dedicate the rest of our time to a live Q&A where you can ask me questions for the remainder of our meeting. So let's go ahead and start by exploring why does Knight Hennessy Scholars exist? So our vision for the program is to cultivate a growing global community of visionary, courageous, and collaborative leaders who are committed to positive change in the world. And the way that we reach this vision is through our mission, which is selecting and supporting a multicultural and multidisciplinary cohort of scholars and prepare them for leadership roles in academia, industry, governments, nonprofits, and community at large. So the program was founded in 2016 by John Hennessy. He served as Stanford University's 10th president. John, over the course of his career, recognized the need for greater leadership across a variety of sectors in our society and created a graduate level scholarship to help address this systemic issue. So the reality of complex challenges in the world is that they require so many different disciplinary angles. And so he recognized that people across these different sectors were not working with one another. A good example is a global pandemic that's more than just healthcare professionals and medical professionals to solve, but also requires the coordination of governments, of industry, of communities to be able to make sure that the solutions that are deployed are universal and are really efficient and effective. So in order to launch this ambitious program, he turned to a couple friends, including Phil Knight, who graduated from class 62 an MBA from the Stanford School of Business. He is an American businessman, a philanthropist, and most famously known as being the co-founder of the brand Nike Incorporated. And he provided the founding donation for the program, hence the name, the Knight Hennessy Scholars. So each year, we'll select up to 100 graduate students from across Stanford's 7 distinct graduate schools. We'll fund up to 3 years of your graduate studies at the university, and we'll help equip you with leadership roles, equip you for leadership roles, again, across a variety of sectors through this experience, learning alongside a really diverse and really dynamic group of scholars that are traveling along with you. We're intentional with how we define and cultivate our leadership. So our leadership development program has 3 goals, and you can see that in the yellow section of the graphic. 1, to grow your multicultural perspective. 2, to prepare you to drive meaningful results. And 3, to deepen your commitment to the greater good. We also identify 9 traits in the blue section that we strive to reinforce in our community. And that's given, and later on when I talk about admissions, those words are exactly what we use to look for criteria in our applicants. And then we also identify 6 behaviors in the green section around which we design our programming. We all have examples of leaders who say and do different. And so we want to make sure that our leaders leave with these 6 behaviors in mind and that they really can harness that as alumni who are changing the world. The name for this program is called the King Global Leadership Program, and it includes a cadence of lectures, projects, experiences, all designed to reinforce the goals, behaviors, and traits that are captured here in our leadership model. Our leadership program supplements and complements your graduate studies at Stanford. We ourselves are not a degree granting entity at the university, and in fact, we don't admit you to Stanford directly. So all of our scholars also apply and are admitted to a Stanford graduate degree program. That degree program will deepen your domain expertise in your chosen field of study. And so we have, again, 7 distinct schools across the natural sciences, arts and humanities, engineering, education, law, medicine, for example. And so that is where you deepen your domain expertise. Knight Hennessy Scholars will build on that domain expertise by giving you the opportunity to learn and grow alongside a group of scholars who represent a broad range of disciplines and cultures. So even as you're learning your chosen field of study, you'll be exposed to conversations and experiences from your fellow scholars who are studying things that are completely different than you. And the idea is that you then become a project team or a collective or a coalition that can work on a project from those different angles. So as a Knight Hennessy Scholar, you're part of this incredible Stanford University community. Stanford has a graduate student community of approximately 9,000 students across almost 150 different graduate programs, spanning 7 distinct graduate schools at the university. Those schools are business, education, engineering, humanities and sciences, which is our largest school, law, medicine, and sustainability. So all 7 of Stanford's graduate schools are located on the same campus, giving you the opportunity to take courses, collaborate, and innovate with diverse faculty and students in any of these schools. It very well could be the possibility that you study in one field, have an advisor in another, and then spend your time in one of our different research centers in a completely different set of issues. Graduate students will typically live on campus. About 71% of our students will live on our on-campus facility, which means that you engage with each other and our broader community, both in and outside of the classroom. So with a commitment to excellence in research, teaching, and medical care, along with over 100 different research centers and institutes, Stanford provides students with the opportunity to engage with big ideas, to cross conceptual and disciplinary boundaries, and to become global citizens who embrace diversity of thought and experience. So if you do a quick internet search and look up research centers at Stanford, you might find a set of issues that are explored through one of the different research centers, whether it be our new robotics center, immigration policy, economic policy, the Institute for Human-Centered Artificial Intelligence. We have a number of different hubs where you'll work with faculty, other students, postdocs, and staff to be able to further some of the work in those particular issue areas. So I encourage you to look on how to add more on top of your experience. So Stanford's campus is located in California, south of San Francisco, and in the heart of Silicon Valley. And in fact, the culture of innovation at Stanford created the conditions that allowed Silicon Valley to emerge as a global innovation hub. So at Stanford, you'll find a spirit of comfort with ambiguity, a bias towards action, and a willingness to take risks, all of which inspire a sense of optimism and belief that in the Bay Area, so much is possible when you work together. So now let's dive into your journey as a Knight Hennessy Scholar. So in sharing what we do, i.e. the benefits of the program, I'll focus on 3 different factors. That includes leadership development, community, and funding. So I spoke earlier about our King Global Leadership Program with the graphic, our leadership model, which strengthens your leadership traits and behaviors through various types of programming. And again, this is on top of your already busy and competitive graduate programs. And so your engagement with a program will vary based on two different factors. One, how much time you'll spend at Stanford, given the commitment of your academic study. Some of our scholars do 1 or 2 year master's programs, while others are doing multi-year PhDs. And then also the specific type of your study, your academic commitments to your particular program, whether it be a rotation year, whether it be qualifications for your PhD, sometimes a reading year. So depending on the type of degree that you're obtaining, we have to design a programming that will ebb and flow to fit your particular cadence, because we expect this variation given the wide range of academic degree programs represented in our multidisciplinary scholar community. And so with that said, we do have required programming for our scholars who apply with a commitment for engagement, and there are required programming for all of our scholars. These required core events for Knight Hennessy scholars include approximately 1 hour per week, 1 quarterly town hall, and 1 weekend retreat per year. And so we feel that that is a good middle ground to be able to make sure that you're a part of our program while also excelling in your degree program, because it's your #1 job to get the degree that you're admitted to Stanford for. Additionally, scholars are also expected to participate in at least 3 different electives per quarter. So it's kind of like a tasting menu. We have lots of different types of programs that you can engage with that range from guest lectures, artist talks, and group workshops. And again, this is you're going to take these that are based on your particular academic degree program. And so while these are required, if you have an academic conflict, we of course are very understanding that and require our scholars to submit some kind of academic conflict form. So I'm going to then introduce a kind of a sample, a tasting menu, if you will, of some of the KGLP, that's King Global Leadership Programming, that highlights 3 different areas that we focus within our student community, and that includes skills building, perspectives from different guest speakers, as well as experiences. All right, so I mentioned that 1 hour per week that comes in the form of either a storytelling and a leadership workshop in your later years. So for our first year scholars, they participate in a weekly storytelling workshop that takes place. And so that will happen during the first 3 quarters of your first year within the university. And this interactive program teaches important communication tools and provides our scholars with an opportunity to practice those skills while learning about each other's life stories. The second year scholars will participate in Leading Yourself, which is a series of workshops designed to reflect on big questions and topics to help you understand and be more intentional about your leadership journey. Now, you might already be wondering and curious about why we put such an emphasis on storytelling. Well, for us, storytelling is a leadership skill set. Imagine a world where you're having to take your very complex PhD research and make it understandable to someone who is a lawmaker or policy writer or your grandmother. That ability to simplify and make clear something really complex is a storytelling gift. Imagine a world where you're having to work with 2 different constituents who disagree on the direction of the program or the initiative that you're working on. And so you have to actively listen and provide feedback. That is also a storytelling gift. And imagine a world where you're having to convince people to change their mind, to take up something new, to give up what they know, to move into a future of uncertainty. That power of persuasion and empathy and community is also a gift of storytelling. And so that's why we put you throughout your entire year in that storytelling workshop, where you'll work with 2 excellent practitioners who are able to give you and increase your skills in the gift of storytelling and understanding your leadership journey. I also mentioned a 1 per year. So we host 3 Northern California weekend retreats each year to help sharpen your leadership skills while building community and shared culture. The newly arriving cohort will attend the fall retreat, typically held in Asilomar, that's on the California coast. And then scholars across all cohorts can attend the winter or spring retreat that's held in either Santa Cruz or Fallen Leaf Lake, which is up by Lake Tahoe. And you can see a picture of our scholars coming back from a hike where we do different leadership programming, as well as opportunity downtime to be able to connect over hikes, bonfires, karaoke nights, game nights, so that you're able to meet students across your different cohorts. So even though your cohort is up to 100, you'll have scholars who are ahead of you and scholars who are coming up behind you. So we have over 300 scholars who are actively running around Stanford in any given year. That gives you the opportunity to meet people across different cohorts and disciplines. So through these experiences, you'll build essential skills for personal and professional growth. Next up, we have perspectives through our different guest speakers. So we have an annual McMurtry Leadership Lecture Series that is a talk by an experienced leader, followed by a candid discussion with our scholars who can help moderate the conversation. So scholars who have a particular passion about that topic can introduce the speaker and help moderate the conversation. And each year we'll invite a new set of speakers. Here pictured, you see Dr. Anthony Jack, who is a scholar of education, but we've also had philanthropist Melinda French Gates, author of the book Caste, Isabel Wilkerson. We've had economist Raj Chetty, several Nobel laureates, including Francis Arnold and Malala Yousafzai, former president of Chile, Michelle Bachelet. And we've also had a mix of different, in this past year, Liz Wiseman, who is the author of the book called Multipliers, who was able to present to the students a really compelling case about being both a multiplier and a diminisher on a leadership team. And then pictured on the right is from Curiosity Corner, which happens on Wednesdays during lunch throughout the academic year, where scholars can attend. These gatherings feature a Stanford professor or expert guest addressing a topic related to some theme that we designate over the quarter, and then are designed to spark discussions and debate. So this year's quarterly themes were different models of leadership, the impact of emerging technology, and different career paths and decisions. And we have a new set of themes every single year. Pictured on the right is Tara Vanderveer, who came during our different models of leadership. She is a former head coach of the women's basketball team at Stanford, led the team to 3 national titles, and made the compelling case that her best leaders weren't necessarily the team captain or the people on the court, but sometimes the people on the bench who were the glue people who helped the entire team, the organization, reach that particular goal of a national title. And so these are really great talks that happen during the time that you're at the program in the dining house. And these programs offer overall the opportunity to learn from experts outside of your discipline. And this will help foster interdisciplinary exploration and collaboration. The final thing that I want to focus on are experiences. So scholars will pitch ideas for keystone projects at the annual Ideas Festival, and then form multidisciplinary teams around different shared interests. We had over 31 teams this past year. And so throughout the year, the KHS team will support the scholars with coaching and mentors, as well as financial support to be able to help lengthen the things that they're working on. And then they'll be able to share those ideas at a spring showcase, at the Keystone Project Showcase. And so, like I mentioned, there were those 31 projects addressing issues that are that range in terms of different topics, from access to scientific research, education inequity, mental health, and peacemaking in different tribal communities. So you really have the opportunity to be able to kind of further, especially for those who are social entrepreneurs or thinking about social impact. It's a great opportunity where you get funding, and then for each year that you pitch that idea, you get additional funding as well as mentorship. And we've had many nonprofits spin out from that particular opportunity. Another highlight that I want to share with you is the Global Travel Study Trip. And so scholars receive exposure to different cultures through that particular program. Stanford faculty will lead and curate these trips, which last about 1 week and take place during the breaks in the academic year. Each scholar can take one global trip during their time in the program, and some examples of previous destinations include India, South Africa, Norway, Jordan, Chile, and Turkey. We've also having in this upcoming year another trip to South Africa, as well as Japan and New Zealand in the upcoming year. So these experiential opportunities allow you to engage deeply with global perspectives and tackle real-world challenges through hands-on projects. And the skills building, the guest speakers, and the experiences is very much something that helps supplement your learning while at Stanford. So community is a core part of KHS, and so I want to transition in talking a little bit more about our community. So KHS will bring scholars together to learn and build deep relationships that foster meaningful connections and lifelong friendships. So these include holiday gatherings, a fall concert, storytelling nights, a graduation ceremony that for us is happening in 2 weeks, and reoccurring community meals throughout the year, including lunch on Monday through Thursday at Denning House. We know that the currency for graduate students is free food. So all the programs that I presented to you in the previous slides all come with a free meal, as well as lunch that is provided for our scholars. Of course, the rationale is that you can feed your brain and your mouth at the same time to be more efficient. That's very much the Stanford way, but more importantly, so that you can really work and focus on the things that you're studying in your research, as well as in your different degree programs. One of the ways that we have scholars contribute contribute to our community is through their own scholar-driven events where they get to design, and these are crafted to be both academically and culturally enriching. These are planned and executed by the scholars, so SDEs that we call them for short, are created with the needs and interests of the scholar community in mind. Some of the scholar-driven events deepen our understanding of an important topic. Other examples include Deep Dive, where scholars will interview about each other's life and leadership journey. We also have KH Geographic, where scholars share information about their home country. And so we had a brilliant presentation from two of our scholars from Kenya as well as Tanzania that really helped inform and enlighten the community of their own fun rivalry between their two nations, but more importantly, the collaboration and things that they work on together. On that note, we also host collaborative events, which are SDEs that require extensive logistical support from the team. Recent collaborative events included a Persian New Year celebration, an Indigenous Leadership Perspectives panel. We've also had healthcare and rights protection in Africa. And pictured here, you see a NASA astronaut, Warren Hoburg, who talked about humanity's future in space. So I hope this kind of brief overview provides you with a understanding of our leadership development program, how it contours to your particular degree program, and how the variety of events and experiences strengthen your leadership and cultivate our community. Now I want to share some more about who makes up our scholar community. And so let me talk now about the current first 7 cohorts of the program. So our first cohort of 51 students enrolled in 2018. So if you kind of do the math, that's about 7 years ago. Our most recent, the 7th cohort, is 89 scholars, and we're building towards a steady state of 100 scholars each year, all of whom are starting a new Stanford graduate degree program and have earned their undergraduate degree within the last 7 years prior to enrolling. Our cohorts are multicultural, so 45% of our scholars hold a non-US passport from over 75, excuse me, different countries in total. We have enrolled scholars from over 174 different institutions with the aspiration to be able to grow that list every single year. So that's a little bit about the nod to our multicultural community. We're also quite multidisciplinary. So we've enrolled scholars from over 107 different degree programs. You might remember from the earlier talking point that we have over almost 150 different degree programs at Stanford, but we have currently 107 represented. And they are spanning all 7 of Stanford schools, which you can see on the left-hand side. In the aggregate, 47% are pursuing a professional degree, 41% are pursuing a doctoral PhD program, and 37% are pursuing a master's degree. When you add that all up, that's more than 100% because KH scholars are also maybe pursuing a dual or joint degree and who they are eligible to apply. And about 10 to 20% of our scholars choose that route to have maybe a JD in law plus a master's in sustainability or an MBA plus a master's in environment or a master's in education, for example. So take a look at those dual and joint degrees. And if you are admitted to those programs and to Knight Hennessy, you're able to get funding for up to those 3 different programs. So where does this community convene? Pictured on the left, you see Denning House, which is our convening hub for Knight Hennessy scholars and is located on the Stanford's broader campus in California, where you live and study. And though it's not a residence, so even though it's called a house, no one lives there. It is a home in many ways for our scholars. It's a dedicated third space for building relationships and exploring ideas with your fellow scholars, the Stanford community members, and our distinguished visitors. And so most of your time is spent in your center of gravity, which is the degree program to which you're admitted for. Then you spend time at Denning House, where you're able to get programming as well as a bite to eat, take a coffee break, and then you go off to where you live somewhere in the graduate student residencies. The arts, as you can see pictured through the window, through the front lobby of the program, the arts play an integral component of Denning House. So works of art are just in and outside of the house, and we invite these featured artists to visit Denning House to speak to the role that the arts play in shaping leadership and society. And so you see pictured on the left, on the upper right is storytelling that is happening in our dining room. In the lower right is our living room where scholars will hang out and have group meetings and be able to connect and get a bite to eat. So those are pictures of what's happening in Denning House on a typical day. So now you've learned a lot about our community development programming and also specifically our community. The final component of what we do and the benefit of the program is our funding. And so let me now speak a little bit to the benefits of what you get as being a Knight Hennessy scholar. So, with founding gifts totaling more than 750 million, the Knight Hennessy Scholars Program, Knight Hennessy Scholars is the largest university-wide fully endowed graduate fellowship in the world. And so, that founding donation from Phil plus our team of donors allows us with generosity to be able to use this endowment that to select and support a group of scholars from a wide range of socioeconomic backgrounds and offer scholars equal access to funding, leadership development programming, and our physical space. So as a Knight Hennessy Scholar, you'll receive financial support that covers tuition and associated fees for up to 3 years. In addition to those tuition and fees, you also receive a stipend for living and academic expenses. You'll also get a travel grant to cover one annual economy class ticket to and from Stanford. First-year scholars receive a relocation and technology stipend to offset the expenses of arriving at Stanford, and second and third-year scholars may apply for supplemental funds supporting academic enrichment activities, for example, attending conferences, summits, and doing summer research. Please note that you are guaranteed funding from KHS only for the degree programs or programs that you are admitted to at the time of scholar selection. So for example, starting simply, if you apply for a 3-year degree program at the time of scholar selection, such as a JD, KHS will provide funding for all 3 years of that degree. If you apply for a 1 or 2-year long program, such as most of our masters at Stanford, then you receive funding from KHS for the length of your degree program, 1 or 2 years, depending on that type of degree. Now, for those that are more than 3 years, typically for those who are attending the MD at the School of Medicine or a PhD, KHS would fund you for up to 3 years, and the school that is hosting your degree would pay for the remainder. For PhD programs, Stanford guarantees 5 years of funding for all PhD students at the time of admission. Therefore, KHS would give 3 years of funding, after which the department covers the additional 2 years according to their standard funding commitment, which will vary by department. And so in essence, our departments love having Knight Hennessy scholars because it means they can reallocate those funds to admit and support another student. And so that will vary largely by departments. Please check in with each department looking at what that funding pattern would be, but mostly it would be 3 years of KHS plus the remainder for the department, which is the typical funding pattern. KH scholars also receive enhanced benefits and access to unique leadership development opportunities that we've talked about in the previous slides. And so, and then finally, for other programs that last longer than 3 years that involve professional programs like JD and MBA, KHS will fund the 3 years if will fund up to 3 years if both programs are listed on your KHS application. And then if you require 3 additional years of funding beyond that, you'd have to look into financial aid or self-funding. And of course, I'm happy to dive into those specific funding questions once we get to the Q&A session of the information session. So now you've learned a lot about why we exist and what we do. Let me now share a little bit about how to apply by speaking about our criteria, our application, and our timeline. And this is where I invite a very big blue sky, because this is something that you want to do as much research as you possibly can to make sure that your application is most ready for application to Stanford and to Knight Hennessy. So I like to describe to prospective applicants that the order of operation is, am I ready for graduate school? Am I also going to apply for Stanford? And then I apply to Knight Hennessy, because as you'll learn from our eligibility requirements, you must gain admission to the university, and therefore you want to apply when you are most ready for your graduate degree program. So speaking broadly, we welcome applicants from across the world, and so we have no requirements or quotas by country or world region, and there is no formula for admission, and there are no scores, achievements, or stories that automatically qualify you for admission. Instead, the KHS application is an invitation to show how you demonstrate these qualities that we seek, how you demonstrate the qualities that we seek in ways that are unique and distinct to you. However, we have 2 eligibility requirements for all applicants. This is for us to be able to consider your application. First, you must submit 2 applications, one to Stanford graduate degree program and one to Knight Hennessy. The applications and deadlines are different, so we encourage you to plan and meet the requirements and deadlines for both applications. Second, you must have earned your undergraduate degree within the last 7 years. So for those who are applying in 2025 to join next year's cohort, the 2026 cohort, you must have earned your undergraduate degree in 2019 or later. So whatever is your graduation year plus 7, and that's your window of eligibility. For applicants who served in their military, after their undergraduate studies, will offer a 2-year extension on the eligibility window. So the criteria of what we're looking for, specifically for Knight Hennessy, which will be contrasted to your particular degree program. Maybe they emphasize work experience or research. That's all on you to be able to kind of research and see what is competitive for a Stanford program. Now, for Knight Hennessy, applicants who meet those 2 eligibility requirements are considered for admission, and from this group, we'll select those who most strongly demonstrate our criteria, which are these 3 themes: independence of thought, purposeful leadership, and civic mindset. So starting with independence of thought, we seek visionary thinkers who are curious, open-minded, analytical, eager for cross-cultural perspective, and genuinely excited to boldly and creatively address our world's most important challenges. So what you'll notice is that there's not an emphasis on GPA, there's not an emphasis on test score. We want to understand how you're using your brain as being a more creative and dynamic, innovative problem solver. And so maybe this means all the different research experiments that you've run through your research lab. Maybe this means being able to swirl different perspectives from one discipline into another discipline. Maybe this means showing the capacity to change and evolve your mind when you have data that starts to contradict what you know. And so this is really an orientation towards your intellectual vitality. How are you using your degree program to better understand the problems that you're really focusing on? The next of our criteria is purposeful leadership. We seek courageous leaders who are ethical, decisive, resilient, driven to achieve meaningful results, and motivated to inspire others to effect positive change at scale. And this isn't simply a list of the titles that you hold, but rather how to use each of those as platforms to make positive change in the world around you. And so maybe you've added a new organization at your university that filled a need. Maybe you've then driven some kind of initiative within your community that also connected a particular need within the community. Maybe you've created documentation, trained your next board of leaders. And so it's really not about accolades, but really the set of actions that garnered those accolades that we're particularly looking for. And I find that also with international students, as far as like identifying these titles, it's not necessarily about having the titles, just describe what you do, where you spend your time. And that in itself is the purposeful leadership of just seeing how you contribute positively to a space long after you've left it. And the third of our criteria is civic mindset. And so we seek collaborative community members who are humble, empathetic, trustworthy, oriented to act in the service of others, and deeply passionate about contributing to the greater good. And so this is someone's orientation towards others. And so how do they think about those who are most affected by the problems that they're working on? How do they work with the people who disagree with them to be able to build towards a more universal solution? How are they able to really think, be more generous with their time, energy, and effort to be able to clear the barriers of those who are around them, to be able to create them as leaders as well. And so this again is someone's orientation, both in thought and action, to something that's much bigger than them. And so if you remember back to our leadership model, in the traits that we look for, you can see that they're all embedded across these 3 themes. You'll notice that the criteria is not specific to a discipline or a culture, but it's really understanding how do you contextualize what it is that you do, where you spend your time, energy, and effort on, and then align it to these 3 different pillars. And this is what our selection committees will be looking for, is how do you demonstrate an integration across independence of thought, purposeful leadership, and civic mindset. So you demonstrate these 3 criteria in your Knight Hennessy application. And we've designed the Knight Hennessy application with 2 goals in mind. One, to help you better understand yourself, what you've done, who you are now, and what you aspire to do in the future. And then also let the selection committees learn more about you as well. So let's overview how and when you apply. The Knight Hennessy Scholars application opens in June and is due in October. So that's starting on the left-hand side of the graphic. The KHS application deadline in October is the same for all applicants, regardless of which Stanford degree program that you apply to. Now, in the weeks and months prior to the October deadline, you'll need to prepare and submit 5 components of the Knight Hennessy application. That includes an online application, a 1-page resume, a set of transcripts and test results that will mirror the department that you're applying to. So if they don't require tests, then we don't require them. But if they do, then we will also require unofficial scores to us. 2 recommendation letters, and then a set of short answers and essay. So that's what you'll have to submit by October, and that's condition 1. Condition 2 is that you'll also submit a completely separate application to a Stanford graduate degree program. So unlike the Knight Hennessy application, which has a uniform deadline for everyone, the the Stanford application deadlines will vary by program. So for example, if you're applying to the MBA, to the Graduate School of Business, that deadline will be in round 1 in September. For those who are applying to the MD, that That's typically in October. School of Education by the end of November, and most of the programs will have an application deadline, including law, engineering, in December. So it's important to check with your desired program to confirm its deadline for Knight Hennessy applicants, which will be earlier than its regular application deadline. It's also important to check through the program to confirm its application requirements. Some materials might be identical across the two applications, like transcripts and resume. However, you want to make sure you mold that resume to fit the criteria of that respective process. So for us, we'll look for those three criteria. For the department, you might want to make sure that it's really forward with the research if that's something that they value. You may or may not want to ask the same recommenders to write the two letters for the two different applications. I will say that's one of the biggest mistakes that students make, is that they ask recommenders to write letters for Knight Hennessy, but it has no nod to the three evaluation criteria. So you want to make sure you have conversations with direct letter writers to make sure you identify shared overlap of evidence of the three evaluation criteria, not necessarily about getting into that particular grad program. And certainly you'll have to write different essays that answer the different application prompts. Your program might require additional materials that Knight Hennessy does not, but note that if your Stanford program does require, again, those test scores, you also will need to report those scores to us at KHS. And so we encourage you to research and plan ahead, and then craft distinct applications that demonstrate your distinct qualifications for your program and for Knight Hennessy scholars. So now a quick overview of what happens after you apply. From October to December, the Knight Hennessy Scholars team will review each eligible application in its entirety, and then we'll identify approximately 500 who most strongly demonstrate the three selection criteria. In January, we invite this group to record and submit a required video statement in which you have 2 minutes to teach something to your fellow scholars. From that group of 500, we then will select approximately 180 finalists who we invite to an event we call Immersion Weekend. So this event takes place on Stanford's campus in February, March, and it's a highlight of the application experience. Immersion Weekend allows you to learn more about Knight Hennessy scholars through event programming, and for us to learn more about you through an evaluative interview. Knight Hennessy scholars and your Stanford degree program will evaluate your candidacy concurrently but separately, and the Stanford degree program will conduct its own review and communicate to you on its own distinct timeline. So depending on your program, you might receive your Stanford admission decision as early as December or as late as April. Some Knight Hennessy scholars and finalists have already been offered admission to their Stanford program, while others are still vying for admission to Stanford. And so let me address two commonly asked questions before I dive into those questions that you'll put into the chat. First, can you be admitted to Knight Hennessy and not to your Stanford degree? And the answer to that question is no. You must receive an offer from your Stanford program in order to be a Knight Hennessy scholar. KHS does not admit you directly to Stanford. And so for this reason, we check in with Stanford programs at regular intervals to verify which candidates have applied and remain competitive for admission to Stanford. And we'll only advance those forward through KHS process whom the departments verify are competitive and eligible. Second, the converse of that question, can you be admitted to your Stanford program and not to KHS? And the answer to that question is yes. It happens every year that some applicants are not selected for Knight Hennessy, but still receive an admission offer from their Stanford degree program. Many of these applicants can choose to enroll at Stanford. And so just note that if you're interested KHS, you can apply confidently that with the knowledge that your KHS application does not negatively impact or preclude your chances of admission to Stanford. And then later on in mid-March, we'll select and name the scholars who have until early May to accept their offer. And then we'll announce those scholars to the world in mid-May and welcome them back to Denning House in September. And then this is the picture that we take when we welcome you back in September. So to recap, we've shared a little bit about why we exist, what we do, and how to apply, and hope we've been successful in showing you how Knight Hennessy can accelerate your journey to impactful leadership. Now, speaking of impactful leadership, KHS alumni are a growing community where we have nearly 190 graduates living across different communities within their fields and across the globe. We'll add more alumni as we finish graduation in the next 2 weeks. This past summer, we hosted our first alumni retreat to deepen connections and gather insights that shape our robust alumni programming. And alumni are already stepping up as mentors for current scholars, as well as our different Keystone projects, with plans underway to invite them as featured speakers to many of our programs. programs, and host local meetups worldwide. So all in all, we're a very young program with a small group of alumni, and so we're working towards this really bigger vision of being able to connect these people across this transformative Knight Hennessy experience long after graduation. So in closing, KHS will offer you an individualized journey of personal and leadership development within the greater Stanford community. Through the scholar experience, KHS enriches your academic studies as well as inspires introspection, self-understanding, and community building. And this experience of being within the program will deliver constant exposure to new people, new ideas, and ways of thinking that'll catalyze your personal transformation, helping you dream bigger. And finally, KHS will complement your field of study with essential skills and perspectives, fostering deeper thinking and equipping you to make an even greater impact in the world. And with that, let's go ahead and jump into some questions. I'll go ahead and open up the chat here to see. And then for folks who want to ask a question, they can either raise their hand and come off mute, and we'll be able to continue the conversation there. But Patrick, I'll bring you in to be able to help with this section of our hour together.
Great, thank you. So as he said, any question, if you have any question, you can use the chat or you can unmute and let us hear you. Yes, Francisca, send us up. Please, let's hear you, Francisca.
Hello, hope you can hear me.
Yes, loud and clear.
Thank you. So my name is Francesca, and initially I wanted to apply for one of the school of Stanford, and then I hear this scholarship looking very interesting. But the thing is, I'm defending my bachelor degree in November, meaning I'll be done in November this year, but my graduation would be for June next year. In that case, I was hoping to start applying this year and then hoping to get in by next year, August. So I was wondering when exactly should I apply? Because I heard about 2019, which made me very confused. And then I wanted to clarify about that.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much, Francesca. So our eligibility window, the time to which you can apply, is within 7 years of graduating with your bachelor's. So if you graduate in November of this year, +7, and that's how long you have to be able to apply. Graduate students range in age across their different disciplines because the best time to apply will vary based on the program. So for example, if you're applying to an MBA, they expect work experience. And so that's why we have this large window of when you can be eligible to apply to the program. And the big zoom out rationale is they wanted leaders to be around the same age as they progress through their graduate studies. So if you are graduating this year, that means that you can apply in this current cycle. So the application cycle will open from June 1st and run all the way through mid-October. And as long as you get your bachelor's and complete it and get conferred that degree before the start of the program, that would be September 2026, then this is the first year of your eligibility. Now, what I want to recommend students that this process of graduate studies, the preparation, the readiness, it really can really can vary based on when when those scholars feel most ready, feel most confident. Some scholars want to get industry experience before they jump into a PhD program. Some students will have to get work experience because of the MBA, or for example, the School of Education's PhD also prefers work experience. Some students want to take a break to be able to kind of put some time in between their bachelor's and their graduate program. And so they take a few years to, again, get industry experience, really discover the problems that they want to work on, and then further that in their graduate studies. I know several of our computer scientists, for example, were working in industry, identified a problem, and now we're coming back to a degree program to be able to understand and solve that problem. So that is all to say that you have many different opportunities to be able to apply, or years to be eligible within the 7 years. And so for this next incoming application cycle, that means people who have completed the bachelor's in 2019 or later makes them eligible to apply for Knight Hennessy. And so you'll want to visit our website, and actually I can key that over here on the screen. This is our Knight Hennessy website, kh.stanford.edu. If you go to the admissions section here, we have a tool, an eligibility checker tool, where you can actually input those particular those particular, you can respond to a few prompts to be able to know if you are able to be eligible to apply to the program. So then you see the section called check for your eligibility for the incoming cohort, and then just answer the questions accordingly. And then you'll be able to then make sure that you're meeting that minimum eligibility for this current cycle. And then again, if admitted, and that would be by the following March to start in the fall, then you're eligible for the 3 years of the funding. All right, so I see a question here from Christian, nice name, and here in the Q&A module. The first question is for non-traditional background students who might have not had access to extensive leadership opportunities in their home context, how does the admission committee identify and evaluate potential alignment with the KHS criteria? This is a question where immediately my brain jumped to your letters of recommendation. And so you want to make sure that you have conversations for those rec letters who might have a more seasoned journey of life and career than you, to be able to contextualize the work that you've done, the time that you've spent. And so it's really important for us from a global perspective to really understand how is it that these behaviors align with the criteria, not necessarily that you want a leadership award for an example, but it's really about a pattern across those different things. And so whether or not we have many non-traditional students who might have had a wandering road through their careers, but then are able to really kind of shape an arc that makes sense to what cultivate and forge who they are, and how they're bringing that to motivating them for a grad study program, and then again be competitive for that particular program. The other place where my brain goes to is also what will make you competitive for the Stanford degree program. And so then you'll want to make sure that you research ahead, contact different people to be able to understand what it is that the department will be looking for. And again, we have had students who had many different trajectories to their education. So it's about understanding who you are, those contributions, where you want to go, and how Stanford would help you and Knight Hennessy would help you get there. The second of your questions there is a emphasis on developing future global leaders. So how does KHS specifically measure or assess the long-term impact or leadership journey of our alumni beyond their time at Stanford? Like I mentioned earlier on the final slide, we're a very young program, so we have very little data on how much the program will really add, because we don't have the gift of time. And so this is a question that even John Hennessy will grapple with. He's like, let me do that assessment in 20 years, 20 or 30 years from now, to be able to understand what is the true value add of the program. But in the meantime, we've had really great, stunning benefits of seeing where our alumni are going, how they're already making impact in their communities, coming back to contribute as speakers, that we have not as long of a runway to really understand this long-term impact. But that is, I think, the next chapter of understanding what is that true value add, because in the current moment, we know that we're collecting a lot of people who connect across different disciplines and cultures, who really like each other, that then hopefully in 10 to 20 years are co-founders, are working together across governments and different sectors, and that's where we'll need a little bit more time. But we kind of forecast that looking at the Stanford Alumni Association, who are doing amazing things. So just as a recap, this is in the eligibility section under the admission tabs on our website. And so after the presentation, we encourage you to go there. All right, so let's go ahead and the next question I see here. There are a couple questions. Thanks so much, Aaron, for that. So there's not currently a link to apply because the application opens on June 1st. So please go back to our website to jump into to see where the application will be made available on June 1st. We don't have an age eligibility necessarily, so you are able to apply if you check that eligibility criteria. You have to just earn your bachelor's by the start of the program. Okay, so I'm just going to go through these a little bit one by one. Can a student reapply for the scholarship after being admitted to Stanford? The answer is that it depends on the particular department. The only degree type that we allow for someone who is a currently enrolled student to apply for after their first year is the PhD. So if you're admitted to a PhD program, so you can focus on the Stanford degree side first, be admitted and then enroll, and then you can apply that same year so that we can fund your second through fourth years at the university. That is also a pathway of eligibility. And actually, I'll go back to the website here to show you that when you're looking at the different pathways of eligibility, that we have here, the pathways here are these 4 different types. So the one that I just described is that you're a current PhD Stanford student in your first year enrollment. And so you are eligible to apply for that PhD program to get the funding for the 2nd through 4th years. And this is where it gets complicated because we're such a large university, and not to anyone's surprise, decentralized in many ways. The other pathway that is eligible through the question is that if you're a current Stanford student who applied to add a second full-time Stanford degree program, for example, a professional or even a PhD, that will also make you eligible so that you start your new program and KHS in the same program year. So by way of those 2 pathways, you can apply after being admitted to a Stanford program. And so the other 2 are based on concurrent applications or a deferment. So those are the 3 different ways to make yourself eligible across the 7. And we don't have any bearing on applying a second or third time. Oftentimes, the number one reason why a person doesn't get Knight Hennessy is not getting into Stanford. And so we don't compare your iterations, because it very well could have been that you weren't competitive for your degree program. And so we're not going to be a part of the assessment for someone for Knight Hennessy, because that someone could be really good for the scholarship, but not get the profile, the research profile that your department needs. So again, you want to research that program as thoroughly as possible, kind of understand what are the types of people who are admitted to that program, because we can't advance anyone forward for the scholarship if they're not competitive for their particular program. So make sure that you can do as much as you can to research. Again, like I said, the order of operations is, am I ready for grad school? Am I competitive for my Stanford program? And then think about Knight Hennessy as a part of that. All right. Patrick, I'm going to throw it over to you to see if there's a question here that you're picking up from the chat that you would want me to answer to, because I see that I'm scrolling a lot, but give me a break to grab a sip of water here.
Yeah, that would be great. So there was a hand up, I think, Deborah. So I think that will allow you to take your water or anything that you want to take. Deborah, do you want to come off mute and ask your question?
Okay, the question I wanted to ask was, do they only offer graduate programs, or they also enroll undergraduate?
Thanks so much for the question. This is specifically a graduate level fellowship. So we hope that you apply after the undergrad or for those who are in your network. But the funding opportunity is only for the graduate programs. And so another place that you'll want to spend some time in looking at is the Stanford graduate admissions. Stanford. Oh, can't spell here. It's early morning on my side. And so I think there was a question about looking at which programs are offered. So again, for Knight Hennessy, we're able to fund an eligible graduate program. So you'll want to go to, again, this is Stanford Graduate Admissions, to then explore across the 7 graduate schools, those particular graduate types. There are a handful of degrees that are not eligible, but they usually virtual or some kind of part-time or online program. But everything else that is an in-person degree that's listed, you would be eligible to apply to Knight Hennessy. So here's where you'd look at for graduate admissions, but we also have the professional schools that also offer their own respective degrees. So again, this is for graduate funding only. But you can look at what these particular programs that you'd be looking to, that would be eligible for KHS funding. That said, the big zoom out is that Knight Hennessy also has, our Stanford itself has a good amount of resource. And so Stanford PhDs are, again, come with the standard 5 years of funding. So even without Knight Hennessy, if you're admitted to a Stanford PhD program, then your funding package before you sign on board to take on the degree says that you'll get your 5 standard years of funding. So PhDs often don't come to Knight Hennessy for the funding purposes. They come for the exposure of perspectives, of disciplines, and of the programming and the community, rather than just the funding. And like I said, that makes a really competitive experience when you can really connect across different disciplines and potentially future collaborations with one another. All right, so again, this is graduate admissions website to explore what graduate programs are offered at Stanford, in addition to the professional programs that are offered at the university as well. So then you can go to the respective websites, to the Stanford School of Business, School of Law, and School of Medicine, but learn more about which programs would be potentially a good fit for the kinds of things, projects, and problems you want to solve in the future. I see, Patricia, your hand is up, so let me take a question next from you. Patricia, are you there if you want to come off mute to ask your question?
Hi. So I have a concern because I've been trying to access the Knight Hennessy website, but I don't know if it's because I'm Miranda and yours is working because it's telling me that I can't access it. And same for the Stanford to check the graduate programs that they have. So I don't know, maybe you can help.
Yeah, so you're saying that you are not able to access the Knight Hennessy application, or
Yes,
so Knight Hennessy
yes.
website, because our application doesn't open until June 1st, which
The
will be in a few
website,
days.
sorry, the
Yeah,
website.
I'm not sure what your settings are on your side as far as not being able to access those particular web pages. And we've had similar situations in different countries, but if you can, so you can't access any Stanford website, is that right?
So I did like few days before when I saw that we're invited to this call, and I was able to check like if they have the program that I want to study and all. I was doing it now today. I can't access it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the settings are on your side, but I will say continue to persist to reach out. If you want to email, I'll have a contact email at the end of our presentation here so that you can send it to the Knight Hennessy side, and we can troubleshoot to see if there's something specific to the region, but it might be specific to your device. So try a different browser, try a different device, and see, try friends and see if you can get the information. The good news is that we're well ahead of the deadlines for both Stanford and for Knight Hennessy. Our application will open on June 1st and run through October. The Stanford programs will typically run in between the summer all the way through December, so depending on the program. So luckily, there's more time for you to be able to get the information. But yeah, I'll have some contact information at the end of the presentation here. All right, May, I also
Thank
see
you.
your.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. May, you're up next.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christian, for this opportunity. It really means a lot to us. So my question is, can I defer my Stanford offer for the next year if I get accepted to the university, but but not for the program? And then my second question is, does the program also offer like leadership workshops, mentorships, speaker series, or any other immersive like experiences that may benefit the scholars? So my third question is, how many graduate schools can I apply to within a year at Stanford? 2 or 3? Is there a limit on that as well? Thank you so much.
Sure, thanks, May, for all those, and I'll take them one by one. So, as far as deferral into the next year, the short answer is yes, you can defer your admission and reapply to Knight Hennessy if you're not selected for a current cycle. You do have to make sure that you are within that 7-year window of eligibility. So, so if you're able to defer and are still within the window, then we have many students from which they would not be able to enroll into a master's program if it wasn't for some kind of funding opportunity like Knight Hennessy. And so, yes, you can be able to toggle and make those choices for your option based on the degree program. So you'll have to check in with your particular degree. There's some years where they allow deferrals very easily, others where they're more stringent based on extenuating circumstances. So know that pathway number 2 of our eligibility page, and I'll just go ahead and toggle back over to that, says that you have already been offered and deferred admission to a full-time Stanford graduate program and will apply to KHS so that you start that in the same year. We're not able to fund in-progress degrees, so if you start enrolling in a master's, then that makes that ineligible to be funded for the second year, for example. So you have to make sure that you time that accordingly. The second question, the short answer is yes, that Stanford has so many things that we only offer just a tip of the iceberg of what our scholars get involved in. We have many scholars who get involved in those other research centers. So I'll actually do that demo right now. So if you do Stanford research centers, and then you'll you can go to this list of different research centers that are at Stanford that many of our scholars get involved in many of these different things. And they most recently added a new robotics center that I was just catching up with one of our mechanical engineers yesterday, who's now doing really cool stuff with biomimicry, robots that are designed to move like animals. He was describing how he wants to design robots that explore shipwrecks in the Indian Ocean. And so that's the idea, is that you have some of these other places where you can get get different leadership speakers, mentors, and that often come with free food as well to be able to be involved. So take a look at, again, the research centers at Stanford, and then you might find something that really fits the things that are aligned to your own vision of where you want to see your work kind of go and be applied. So again, this is just an example of where else you might find those different pieces. And then your third question, which I am now blanking on what that what you were asking about, May. So if you can remind me what your third question was.
Yeah, so it was, is there a limit on the programs that I can apply within a year?
Right. So there are rules when you're applying to the school, the graduate school. So if you're applying to the graduate school, you can only apply to one program per academic year. The exception is if you're applying to other professional programs, for example, the MBA, the different masters through one of these three schools that you can apply and just have to pay the fee. So again, if it's going to be one of the programs listed underneath the graduate admission programs, that's for this, you can only apply to one program per academic year, and then no limit to the professional schools. You just have to pay that specific fee. And on that note, Knight Hennessy is a free application, so there's not a cost to apply. However, in the preparation for a graduate program, and you'll know this if you're applying to other graduate programs, there are associated application fees, as well as for those who might require some kind of graduate admission test. That's also the logic of someone saying, when's the best time to apply is when I've done my preparation for my graduate tests, as well as I'm ready to apply to the application fees that are associated to applying to graduate school. And of course, it's a smart thing to consider multiple options if you're thinking about graduate education in the United States, that it's not just looking at Stanford alone, because it's, again, a very, very competitive program. Thanks, May, for all those questions. All right, so I thank you again for the shout outs in the chat saying that people are able to access the website. So I hope that that will resolve itself later on. As far as the School of Engineering, there's a question here in the chat about, does the School of Engineering prefer work experience? That, again, is something that is answered by the specific school. I will say that increasingly, when you start to look at those who are admitted to graduate programs, there's not, again, a set of experiences that are going to make you automatically admitted, because part of a admissions department's job is to make sure that they have a range of different experiences. So maybe they have someone who has a lot of research from their university context, and then they have someone who's worked in industry, then you put them in the program together. So that can be a value add for someone, but that's not a hard set requirement. But definitely check in with students and actually look at the department pages. So many of the Stanford departments will list all their graduate students, and so you'll want to make sure that you get a chance to kind of read a little bit about their backgrounds, and maybe if they have their CVs available, be able to explore a little bit about those particular schools. So I think as a method of demonstration, let's go ahead and try to see if we can see, well, now my internet is not working, so they kind of learn and explore some of those different degree programs. So let's just go to AeroAstro MS, and so you can see that they have those websites linked directly there. And then you'll want to read more about some of the the things that are going to be required for that Masters of Science for the AeroAstro department, and then learn more about it through reading their application, reading their web pages, etc. So, as you can see, there's a different set of requirements for that particular program. And then again, a shout out here to Knight Hennessy for those who will be applying to Knight Hennessy. Often you will also, as you start to peruse the website, learn more about the students who are in that particular program. Going over to people in AeroAstro, and you can also see some of the professors in some of our department cases. You can also read up on the graduate students who are part of that program, but I won't spend the time on our precious time here during the Q&A to do that, but definitely take a look at seeing if you can find some of the contacts, either professors, but I say going through the students is always the more effective way. And then once you identify someone, and I'll actually go back to our Knight Hennessy application here, we also have a scholar directory. So you can actually click on scholars. Here's our most newest class that was just admitted. You can also learn more about the different countries represented from our scholar community. So that's currently where we sit at 81 countries, but that of course is growing every single year. So if you don't see your country, you could be the first. And then if you go back to the any of the different scholar cohorts here on the left-hand side, you can look up names of the scholar, as well as what their backgrounds are in the program. So let's go ahead and tag over to, this is people who are just admitted to the program. So they have not actually enrolled yet in our program. But I'm looking for Herman from Cameroon. So let me find him. Here we go. He's a PhD in computer science, for example. And then Herman, you can see his bio. He went to Kwame. And then so you can then read up on his bio. And then once, I mean, these people haven't enrolled yet, but then there is a Stanford directory, which is a public resource. Then you can throw someone's name in there and be able to look up, be able to look up someone if they are in the Stanford directory. So that's the best way to get in touch with students, both at Knight Hennessy and also at Stanford broadly. And it's an exercise in communication. Sometimes you have to send a bunch of cold emails to get a response back. But that's why I say go through graduate students first, because then they can recommend some of their postdocs and professors in their network, because professors are always hit all the time with these different requests, but students are more proximate to your experience. So hopefully that was a helpful kind of walkthrough on learning more about our scholar community. Okay, let's go ahead and we've got about 20 minutes left, about 20 minutes left in this session. Francesca, I see that your hand is up again.
Yeah, it's me again. So I'm actually interested in a dual degree, the MIP and the MPP. And something that I noticed last year when I was looking into the application requirement, they were saying that the GRE is mandatory. So this year, I went back again and I'm seeing that they didn't request for the GRE test for the 2025 application, like entry for the students who are taking the MIP. So I was wondering, will they be still taking the GRE test for next year? This is my first question. And then second question is regarding the application fee. Is there a possibility to have a fee waiver, or is there like a condition to be waived for the fee? And the last question was about, I forgot, sorry. So I will keep those two for now.
Sure. So the first question, as far as the GRE, that is department specific. So for Knight Hennessy, we mirror what the department requires. So if they say that they require or don't require a test, then we will also follow that testing pattern. And so that's where you want to double check. Again, year to year could fluctuate, as we know, and we see through the headlines, things can change very quickly. And so make sure that you are staying on top of what those particular requirements are, because even if it's required and you don't submit, that's not a nice to have, then you won't be able to be considered because your application would not be fully complete. So make sure that you check with the MIP in this case, or department for those who are on the call, to make sure that you're asking those questions about what are those specific requirements, because Stanford programs again are very competitive, that if you have an incomplete application, they're not going to be moved forward. Now, as far as the application fee, I know of several scholars who are international who are able to get their application fee waived. Now, the way to do that is to make sure that you are ready with the near completed, almost ready for submission application. And so you can go to the Stanford websites. Actually, let's go and do the exercise. Stanford application fee waiver. And hopefully this is a way for you all to feel empowered to be able to do that. Make sure that you're thinking about graduate admissions, not undergrad admissions. And so here are the different waivers, and you can see what those specific eligibility for those who do qualify. But for those programs that are not based on just US citizenship, you can do a school-based fee waiver. Then you have to then research what are the specific requirements for you to be able to consider. Again, there are certain windows of time, and so we've had some international scholars make sure that they meet their submission period for that particular program. Sometimes it requires that you have to have had taken the GRE in order to meet that. So you can research based on the, again, over 74 different departments that are there. So it is possible, but you have to be prepared. And so you have to make sure that you are going to see what those requirements are for any kind of fee waiver. Make sure you have all your application letters of rec already queued up, and then they'd be able to, again, honor that if you are near submission already. So take a look at that. Again, do the search through the application fee for the graduate admissions website. I know that this is, again, part of the process, but I've had scholars who, again, for the same reason internationally, get that fee waiver because they were really ready. They hit the ground running. Maybe they learned about all this structure 1 year and then applied 2 or 3 years later because they really made sure a plan to apply. They made it as part of their plan. So, yeah, thanks so much again, Francesca, for that question.
Yes, I remember the last question. It was about information session. So I went through the Stanford platform, but I don't see anywhere that is mentioned that they offer information sessions, like, sessions like this one. So I was wondering if you have any information about that.
Yeah, that will vary by department. Some departments host info sessions to learn more about the degree programs where you can ask them what is competitive, what are you looking for, and others virtually don't. And so that's, again, the contrast, both the beauty and the curse of being at a very diverse university is that many people have different approaches to that. I know the MBA program, lots of info sessions to learn more about the business school, where others, based on, again, staffing, based on size of the programs, may or may not engage with those different information sessions. So again, doing the continuous research, talking to students where you can, looking at online resources. Sometimes the YouTubes are outdated and others are not, but really just trying to do everything that you can to get connected. And that's why I think connecting through students as well as the websites is a way to do that. But definitely do that research as you continue to learn more about the graduate programs, both through the designated websites, but also the unofficial through the people who are there using the Stanford directory, for example, is a way to be able to do that. So yeah, just keep learning more. And then also, generally speaking, just the process of applying. I know that the graduate school has a applying to graduate school, Stanford. There was a resource that some of my colleagues put together. Of course, Reddit, that's also a whole different cadence of wafting through those different experiences. But I know that there is a graduate student resource that is available online. So through the Stanford admissions, but I think you have to click on a bunch of different links to get there. So again, it takes persistence to be able to find those resources, but they are there in existence. So take a look at the website and do some self-searching. And I know independence, again, it's an exercise in kind of learning how to apply. Many of those who have done graduate school, me included, had to do the research and kind of learn from the websites and from engaging with people. So I really hope that that's been helpful. Now, what your question reminded me of is actually our own website. So if you go to events for Knight Hennessy, and Uwamahoro, I'll get to your question in just a bit. You can click on our admission events, and then you can see all these different events that are happening. Sometimes they're in person in other areas, but you can also join any of these online information sessions. Starting in July, we host application workshops where we screen share the application, similar to what I'm doing now, and kind of talk through tab by tab what these selection committees are looking for. And so it's another way to kind of reinforce your understanding and knowledge of what things that you're looking for. Again, not trying to shape your application what you think people want to hear, but just capturing what you do and being able to put that forward. So please join any of those different online information sessions and workshops. There are some scholar Q&As, for example, where you're able to talk to scholar, for example, and their own experiences. So that's also, we'll keep adding those throughout the summer. Admission Q&As where me and a member of the admission team or some other member of the admission team can then hang out on Zoom and similar to what we're doing now and answer those particular questions. We, of course, are only on the experts of the KHS side. This is, again, an invitation for you to connect with other departments about what things that they're looking for. Okay, yeah, these sessions will happen. Thank you so much, Maurice, for the heads up there that some of the departments will start hosting there once the application opens in the fall. And so you can then join mailing lists, get information on those different pieces there. Okay, Uwama Horo, if I'm saying your name correctly, feel free to ask your question now.
Yeah, thank you. Just let me know if you can hear me well.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I just joined the session late and I've seen that you are recording the session. So I just wanted to know if there is visibility for accessing the session later, because I think once I ask the problems now, I might end up asking what other people have already asked. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the thoughtfulness in that question. And yes, of course, that's through our team here at ALU, and Patrick will be able to share for those who have registered. And even if you join late, we also will have an official recording posted when the application opens on our website that specifically talk about our specific talking points. So feel free to listen to that, join a live one where we'll have scholars who are joining that conversation. So we have lots of different ways to find the information. And because of Stanford's complexity, it's one of those things that you have to sit with for and marinate in the information for a long time. So rest assured that these talking points and everything that I presented would be available to you in recording and or on our website. And then how do you interpret all those different pieces to kind of be informed through the pattern of the talking points through those different recordings. So you can join future live sessions that are on our website, but also get access to this recording and especially doing the research on the Stanford programs. So thanks so much for that question. All right, the next question is what's the acceptance rates for a selection rate for KHS? So this is where it does get a little bit challenging because as you know from eligibility, we can only admit those who are admitted to Stanford. And so it's a whole just by the sheer numbers doesn't tell the complete picture. And so that I wanted to provide that context. Last year we received 8,500 applications for up to 100 spots. So if you do the math, that's something that is very competitive in terms of numbers. That said, many of those scholars who got admitted often don't come into this process thinking, I'm going to get it. And so I often will be asked this question because students are understanding, is applying to Knight Hennessy worth my time? And my response to them is always, is your story worth telling? And I hope that it is. And even if it is a mission impossible, seemingly, on an application, if you're applying to Stanford, then this is an experience that will really change your trajectory of what you do at the university. So I think it's very well worth it. Some of the other benefits is that it's because it's earlier in the timeline, it becomes a primer for you to have conversations with your rec letters, have conversations and do research so that you're ready to really put together a competitive application to your degree program, depending on what timeline that you're working towards. So I certainly think that regardless of the chances, you want to think about, okay, what would this mean for the type of work that I'm doing? And I hope that help motivates folks to really kind of just tell their story because we can only choose from those who are admitted to Stanford. That is something to also really focus on. So again, my rationale to students is, am I competitive for a Stanford program? How do I know that I'm competitive for that program? And then if I'm applying, then Knight Hennessy has to be part of that as well. I'll go ahead and transition to, and I'll take this last question in just a bit, but some dessert slides so that we can complete the recording, and then I'll jump into this last question here, Fisayo. Oh, and then May also ask a question. But yeah, you can certainly join future online events, our online information sessions. We've got application workshops, Zoom meetings where you can connect with members of the team as well as scholars. So please tune in again on our website where you can see these that you can sign up for an on-demand resource. Podcasts. One is hosted by our scholars where they interview each other about their journeys and thinking about the world that they were born into and the world that they imagine of what they're working towards and how they're using Stanford and Knight Hennessy to bring it to life, as well as Lead, which is a 6-episode series from our executive leaders, our executive director, Tina Seelig, as well as John Hennessy, our founder, talk about the formation of the leadership model, as well as drawing from their own careers and experiences. These both together will help you wrap your ears around kind of the culture and what things that are valued by the program. And so you can listen to those wherever you get your podcasts to learn more about the program. We can also access these on our website where you don't have to, it's not behind a paywall that you can access these particular podcasts. And then here's the contact information. You can visit us at kh.stanford.edu. If your question is not answered in all the pages that are there, then you can email us at kh.scholars@stanford.edu and detail whatever that question is, whether it be access to the websites or specifics about the admission process, then feel free to email us there. And then follow us on various social media channels so you can learn more about the content and the people that we're bringing in. I know there's a question May here about overviewing the different stages of the application process. I highly recommend joining an admission Q&A as well as an application workshop where we do key into those different layers once you're competitive. And again, that's why starts being competitive at the Stanford level, but then also what we're looking for in our program, that in some cases you have to be one of two minds. In some degree programs, the criteria is very overlapped with ours with the program, but others they're very different. And so you want to make two applications that speak to what is valued in each of those respective processes. And so please learn more about the interviews in another program for admissions workshops. And then for Saya's question, given the current situation in the US, you know as much as we know about how we're responding to. I will say with confidence that Stanford, again, wouldn't be what it is without our international student population. And so right now we are navigating accordingly, but this is, again, much bigger than just any singular university. It's bigger than Stanford. And so we're communicating with our students to make sure that they get what they need to be able to enroll, as well as being able to respond in real time. So I will say it's been an interesting time in higher education. And so there's a big question point about thinking about when's the best time to apply. And some students are actively choosing, I'll apply in a later cycle once I kind of figure out what my bearings are and where I want my career to go into. And there are other scholars like now's the time to be able to put everything because of the jobs that are shifting across many different industries. So you have to make that informed choice as best as possible. And of course, that's something that you have the agency to be able to choose what that looks like. So I appreciate your asking that question and being forthright about it. Patrick, I know we have 5 more minutes, but anything that from your end before we close out this conversation?
I think I would like to thank you once again for making time. For me, the questions I have has all been answered. One most important question that you have addressed is what you are looking for beyond the academic excellence, which you have addressed very well. So I don't think I have any question again. Students, if you have any last question, we want to call it last because I think Christian is jumping into another meeting. And and those of you who are joining us from Mauritius, it's almost 6, and we'd like to allow you to have a rest for the weekend. So yeah, up to you, students. If you have any question other than that, Christian, you can wrap up.
Yeah, I think what I want to end on is I hope that you're excited about what you've heard today. Obviously, I know that there's like, oh, we don't have Rwanda yet. Yet is always what I'm thinking about. We're always trying to add more folks who are part of our really dynamic community. And so I encourage you to keep staying in touch to learn more. We host lots of different events where you can engage with our different students. Like I said, there's KH Scholars at stanford.edu, but using that Stanford directory, I think it's a really great exercise in being able to just learn more about the program through the eyes of other students. Jeremiah, I see that your hand is up, so I'm happy to take your final question here.
Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to ask if you have applied to Stanford and you've gotten in, but maybe in your first year you didn't get into the program, could you apply later?
Yeah, you'd have to defer your degree successfully so that you have to get permission from your department to enroll in a future cycle, and then you could time it so that you can reapply to KHS. And many students will do that where they apply in the future. The thing to keep in mind is that you have to be within the eligibility window, which is within 7 years. So that means whatever your graduation of your bachelor's degree, you can apply up to 7 years after that to be eligible to the program. So you can go over to our eligibility section of our website. So if you go to kh.stanford.edu, go to the admissions section of our website, and then before you apply is where you'll find our eligibility tool. And so you just then answer the prompts here about meeting the specific guidelines for minimum level study based on the world region. And then will you have your bachelor's degree by that particular year? And then so it'll tell you that you're eligible to apply. And this is also built into our application process. So you answer those prompts as is truthful, and then you'll be able to determine whether or not you're eligible. And then here is the pathway where if you've been offered and deferred admission to a Stanford program, you're eligible to apply. So you start KHS and your degree in the same year. So we have several students to do it through that particular pathway. So the big zoom out is that there's so much embedded here. I know there was a question about the interview, so you can read more about that in the after you apply section here through the KHS invitation only. So please go to our website to learn more about the 2 components of our finalist experience, for example, but we have lots that are embedded within the website. So spend some time to learn more about the program through that. And so again, thank you for spending your time with learning more about Knight Hennessy today. I hope you go forward from this conversation more enthusiastic about KHS and more confident to learn more and apply. I hope that you're also motivated to keep in touch with all of us who really want to help you on your journey through inspiring leadership. So take care and goodbye for now, everyone. I really appreciate your spending time with us.
Thank you so much, Christian, for again sharing all this with us. I believe our students will take it up from here and apply accordingly. Let me pass this announcement to you, students. On the 11th of next month, we have another event where Harambee is bringing different organizations, different companies to share with you. And it's going to be in person at Lesotho. So please make a date with us on 11th of June. Before you drop, please take a minute or two to share your thoughts with us about this session. I just shared the link at the chat, so you give us your thoughts about what do you take from here. So once again, Christian, we are very grateful and we wish you all the best.
All right, take care, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.